Phyllis here. Today I'm going to show you how to line a tube pan. Now this is a Martha Stewart tube pan, and in order to cook a lot of the cakes that I cook, I always want to line the tube pan, and that way I'm absolutely sure nothing sticks. What we'll need: a little Crisco, a little all-purpose flour, cut-right wax paper, sharp pencil, and a pair of scissors and a couple of paper towels. Now I use the cut-right as opposed to the parchment paper because it's a lot more pliable. Okay. Now if the cameraman will come around to the side, you'll be able to see it better. First thing I'm going to do is measure out about half the tube pan with the wax paper. That's a little more than half. I'm going to cut the wax paper right there, and I'm going to fold it. Now the reason I'm folding it is because I'm going to make both sides at one time. So just fold it in half. Then I'm going to take the tube pan, and I'm going to start at one end, and I'm going to just make a mark. Now this tube pan is slightly going up at an angle from the bottom. So when I roll it around, it's going to end up more at the end of the wax paper. See how it's coming down there? And it's coming right to the end. Now I'm going to go right back, and I'm going to do the top the same way. Now, you can probably see in this tube pan where in the past sometimes I used a ballpoint pen to mark my paper, so you don't have to worry. If you only have a ballpoint pen, that'll work too. Now line your bottom up at that lower edge and just roll it again, and you'll get that slight angle that you need to make the sides go in it, because if you try to do it, and see I was off just a little bit, so I'm going to go right back. If you do it just making the sides straight, they'll be gapped out. See how the pan is slightly tilted up towards the top, and it goes in at the bottom. Okay, now we're going to cut this out. And I'm going to cut right along the line I marked. You could probably even use some type of semi-sharp instrument. You could probably even use a knife, because it makes the little mark on the wax paper. See that? Just a teeny little mark, and that's the mark that you follow. Now on this side, this is where I marked it. So I'm going to turn it back over and start cutting again. Right along that little line where you marked, keeping both pieces of paper together. And see, you've got an angle because the pan angles out. Okay, there are my two sides. Now I'm going to do the bottom. And take another piece of wax paper, just sit the pan on it, and just go around with your pencil all around the outside. Now still holding it, I'm going to do the same thing on the inside, so you'll need to make sure you have a long pen or pencil. Just make a mark on the inside there. Now there's our marks, and what I'm going to do now is fold it exactly in half and match up the outside edge of that little circle. And I'm going to just go around and cut that out. Now if it's a little bigger than the actual pan on the inside, it'll just kind of flare out and it'll still be okay. Now I want to cut this just a little to the outside of where I marked, because I want the paper in the pan to go up the sides just ever so slightly. Now see, I don't know if you can see that. There's my line, and I'm cutting maybe 1/4 of an inch from that line. And if you tear it or mess up a little bit, it won't matter, because the whole thing is going to be to line the pan and prevent your cake from sticking. You see? See how that fits? And what we're going to do now is we're going to put a little Crisco in the pan. And this paper is, well, that's too much, just a little bit. And while I'm doing that, I'm just going to grease this pan even on the cone here in the middle. Now, I'm not going to cut any paper out for that, because if it would stick there, you can just take a knife and go down all around it and solve that problem pretty quick. But when you line the pan, there's one thing you know for sure: your cake will come out. It won't stick anywhere in the pan. And if you've spent so much time making a cake, you sure don't want it to stick when you start to dump it out of the pan. Okay, now that's all greased up in there. Now this wax paper is going to stick to both the sides and the bottom of this pan. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my sides and I'm going to put them in. Now I'm going to try to put that smaller angle, which would have been at the bottom, in there first. Now see how that's sticking? It'll stick right to the pan. And because of the angle, it's going to go down in a minute, so you have some up here. But for the most part, it's going to not have a lot of wrinkles in it, because you don't want it to be sticking out anywhere, because if you do, the cake batter will run in that area. Then you'll have trouble getting off your wax paper. Now, I only need a little bit from here to here on this, so I'm just going to tear this. Actually, I'll cut it. I'm going to put this piece in. Now, if you need to, you could actually cut it. I'll show you how to do that. Just cut it down there if you want it to. If it's not quite laying down like you want it to, you can actually give it a little slit there. Okay. Now we've got our sides down. Now we're going to do the bottom. And you can see on the sides that that side went under it just a little bit. Folded into the bottom. Now we're going to take our bottom and lay that in. Now the bottom is a little tighter than the bottom of this cone here. So when we start right in the middle, mash it down. And now it's sticking because we've got Crisco in the bottom of that. Okay. There's what it looks like, and maybe if it doesn't look real neat, that doesn't matter, because the only purpose for this is to make sure your cake comes out after it's done. And once you put the batter in, all these little places where it might be sticking up will settle right down, and the paper will come right straight off the cake once you're through. And the reason that we're very sure of that is because we're going to grease it again. Now we're right now greasing the wax paper. That's going to further cause it to lay down. I'm going to grease the bottom again a little bit. And the whole thing on this is cutting that side paper out at an angle. It's ever the slightest angle, but it's still an angle. And if you don't cut it out at an angle, it's just not going to go down and meet the bottom paper that you want it to meet. Okay, now we've finished with that. Now the next thing to do is, of course, make sure your little cone here is fully greased, and we're going to flour our pan. And that's another very simple procedure. Now if you want it to look really neat while it's in the oven, Not that anybody's going to see it but you, but just to make sure, we'll just cut those off right there. Okay, now we've got a perfectly lined tube pan, and when we put the cake in, that'll mash those little sides continuously up towards the top. So you don't have to worry about any of that. Now the next thing we're going to do, in order to have a really tender crust, we're going to just dust it with a little bit of flour. And the way you do a tube pan is just hit your spoon right on there and let that flour fall. And to get it all dusted everywhere, and just turn it around and around and around. See, the flour is running in there all around. And again, this is what's going to make your crust on the cake very soft. Now I usually just go over to the sink, and I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to go over to the sink and I'm going to just tap it and get all the flour out. Now I'm just going to tap it. Now all the flour's out. Now to get flour out of your sink without making a big mess, all you need to do is run cold water and your little sprayer in there, and it'll all just dissolve and go right out. If you run hot water in it, it's going to stick right to the bottom of the sink. So anyway, there's your paper-lined tube pan that we're going to, later on today, I'm going to make a lemon pound cake in. And when I dump it out, it will come right out. Even if it's hot, it will still come right out of the pan. All right, thanks a lot.